Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to our new episode on Finance Pe Charcha. My name is Kirtan Shah and I'm the host for the day. I'm sure आपने बहुत सारे finance veterans से and otherwise अगर आपको finance पढ़ने का शौक है, you would have definitely heard from a lot of people or read कि investments में 80% of your returns are actually allocated to doing the right kind of asset allocation. इसका मतलब सिंपल है, जितने भी लोग फाइनेंस समझते हैं वो ये सोचते हैं कि आपको जो भी रिटर्न्स निकल रहे हैं उसमें से 80% कंट्रीब्यूशन आपके रिटर्न्स का सिर्फ सही एसेट एलोकेशन करने से है, which is why I think asset allocation is an extremely important thing for you all to know as investors, which unfortunately I see a lot of investors not paying a lot of attention to or focus to. आज भी मैं बहुत सारे investors को मिलता हूँ who have probably 100% of their investments in equity or 100% of their investments in fixed income. And that is one major reason why I have actually invited my guest today to talk to us about asset allocation, because I personally feel asset allocation is a concept is extremely important for you all to know as investors. My guest today is somebody very special. I respect her a lot. She's been around in the mutual fund business for the last 23 years. Started off with ICICI and now currently heads sales for DSP Mutual Fund. She's an IIT Chennai and a postgraduate from SP Jain. But the best part about her is that she's worked across profiles. So I know that she brings background in products, in sales, but the most interesting data point is that she brings background in trainings, and which is why, and I personally feel that there are a lot of people जिनको finance समझता है, बहुत सारे complicated terms they understand, they use it in the real world, but there are very few people, at least the way I look at it, who actually can communicate to you finance in a way that you understand. And that is the most special thing about our guest today. Please help me welcome Usha Nair. Hi, Usha.
Hi, Kirtan. Lovely to be. I'm good and great to be in this show. Extremely delighted.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to be a part of the presentation, Usha.
Pleasure is mine. Pleasure is completely mine.
And I am so confident that today the audience is going to love a lot of our discussion, because like I rightly said, and I know this about you, you're not somebody who only understands finance, but you are a great trainer. And I personally sat for your sessions in the past, and I could not have got anybody better than you to actually talk about asset allocation, which in my opinion is so important for this audience that we are trying to reach out to understand, because largely thanks to social media and so much of content available these days, I think people actually get carried away, and I see extremely young guys with zero experience, forget about asset allocation, doing option trading and all. And I think that's what they do for living these days. So I'm so glad that I could convince you to be a part of this presentation, and thanks for taking the time out.
Thank you, Kirtan. I sincerely hope our audience benefits from these sessions that you're doing, and you are equally knowledgeable and social media influencer in many ways. Some of the threads that you write on Twitter when there are concepts to be introduced is brilliant. So the pleasure is equally ours, and a combined effort, let us hope that a lot of investors benefit from these sessions that you are kicking off.
Usha, I am a student today, so I'm going to ask you questions, and pardon my ignorance on a lot of questions that I'll ask you. But I just want to make sure that whoever's listening to us makes the most out of it. So I might end up asking you some stupid questions. Don't mind me on that. But with you being on the other side, I know you train so well. I will really have very little questions to ask you, but I'll try my level best to ask you as many questions as I can.
Sure.
Great. Let me give you the right so that you can share your screen, and then we can kickstart.
Thanks, Kirtan. Thanks for bringing this opportunity to me to have this wonderful conversation with you on the most important aspect of investing decisions. हम सब लोग सोचते हैं कि इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए कुछ मैजिक फॉर्मूला होता है असली में there is a magic formula, and that magic formula is the right asset allocation. So let's spend some time on understanding what this magic formula is. This is usually the condition in which most of us sit अगर हमने कुछ investment किया तो. बट ये मत सोचना कि ये सिर्फ इक्विटी मार्केट के ऊपर है। अगर हमने गोल्ड खरीदा इन्वेस्टमेंट के नाते पे या रियल एस्टेट में कुछ इन्वेस्टमेंट किया, वी कीप वंडरिंग couple of questions. What are these things that we assume? और हमारे मन में क्या चलता है जब हमने कुछ भी इन्वेस्टमेंट किए हैं? One assumption that all of us make is someone out there knows that what will happen to the asset investment that I have made. मार्केट ऊपर जाएगा, मार्केट गिरेगा, कोई भी एसेट क्लास पे, गोल्ड है, रियल एस्टेट है, इक्विटी है, तो सबसे ज्यादा. This is one assumption that we all make. The truth is nobody out there knows. ये एक्सेप्ट करना काफी लोगों के लिए बहुत मुश्किल होता है, बिकॉज हम सोचते हैं अगर उषा ने बोल दिया, कीर्तन ने बोल दिया या XYZ फंड मैनेजर ने बोल दिया तो वो होगा. नहीं होगा, हमको पता नहीं है. So we have to start with this belief that nobody out there knows. That is the truth. जबकि हमारा assumption है, हमारा विश्वास है कि somebody out there knows. You have to follow asset allocation. The first reason to follow asset allocation is that. Second belief ये होता है कि only gain होगा, pain नहीं होगा. If I get hold of that right time, if I get hold of that right stock, if I get hold of that right asset allocation, मुझे सिर्फ gain मिलेगा, कोई pain नहीं होगा. नहीं. No gain without pain is the simple rule in life. It is the rule in investing as well. ये मान के चलना पड़ेगा. और तीसरा सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट, that returns can be made by avoiding declines. Returns cannot be made if you avoid declines. तो मुझे ये सेंटेंस को चेंज करना पड़ेगा. Returns can be made only if you have declines, not by avoiding decline. अगर डिक्लाइन नहीं होता है बाजार में, कोई भी एसेट क्लास में, वापस मैं बोल रही हूँ, रियल एस्टेट हो, गोल्ड हो, इक्विटी हो, कोई भी एसेट क्लास हो जिसका प्राइस फिक्स्ड नहीं होता है, जिसमें फ्लक्चुएशन होगा, only if you see declines, only if you go through the pain. So second point and third point का कनेक्शन वही है. डिक्लाइन होगा तब दर्द होता है, तब पेन आएगा, और तभी हमको गेन होगा या रिटर्न बनेगा. So this is basically why we always believe these three assumptions are true and none of these assumptions are true. ये सबका opposite सही होता है, इसलिए asset allocation जरूरी है. There is a fundamental difference between human beings and the animal kingdom. जबकि हम बोलते हैं we evolved from the monkeys, we came from the 4-legged animals to a 2-legged animal, our brains developed. ये सारे scientific reasons है, science के studies है, और हम ये सब पढ़ते हैं, सुनते हैं, सब कुछ होते हैं. फिर भी हमारा और उनके बीच में एक fundamental difference है. One difference is we say let us learn from the mistakes. ये हमेशा बोलते हैं failures are stepping stone to success. You learn from your mistake. Don't repeat your mistake, etc. As a human being, we are lucky to have that excuse कि मैंने कुछ गलती किया, मैंने 2 बार साइकिल से गिरा और फिर उठ के साइकिल चलाते हो. So you say that when you're teaching a child to ride a bicycle, हम उसको बोलते हैं बेटा पहले आप गिरोगे, फिर उठ के चलना चाहिए और साइकिल चलाना चाहिए. This is how you teach. Then you give the support wheel. So there is a support mechanism which helps a human being, a child, to go ahead in life. In the animal kingdom, उनका life बहुत difficult होता है because एक mistake cost them their life. That is how, whether it is a deer or a lion, if it cannot hunt, then it is dead. Okay, if it gets attacked by a bigger lion, again it cannot hunt and it cannot live longer. A deer, one escape from the lion or the tiger it cannot make, its life ends. So they cannot make mistakes. They have to survive every day, every minute. We can survive by making mistakes. Now let's see a small clipping. This is a video shot in Madagascar by a wildlife photographer. I'm not showing the full video. If you're interested, you're free to go to YouTube and check that. But this is a garden lizard या garden chameleon, जो भी हम बोलते हैं, और हम सबको मालूम है उनका कलर कैसे चेंज होता है. तो ये बहुत लंबा वीडियो है, 3 मिनट का, और उसमें उसका बहुत सारे कलर्स आते हैं. बट मैं आपको एक छोटा सा क्लिपिंग दिखाती हूँ. you have seen how beautifully the color has changed. And to me, this is asset allocation. He is that insect or that animal, is that reptile, is actually adapting to the environment. Nature has given him that gift to adapt to the environment, to court a mate. जब उसको mating करना है, वो mate को attract करने के लिए उनके उधर कलर चेंज होते हैं. जब उसको डेंजर से एस्केप करना है, जब वो हंट करते हैं प्रे, अपने प्रे को, छोटे इंसेक्ट्स को जब वो खाने के लिए, when it is trying to get a prey into its mouth, all of this, different occasions, it does different color coordination, and that is nature's way of telling you asset allocation is extremely important. So nature bhi humko asset allocation in its own way is teaching us. Then who are we as human beings whose behavioral biases are very high not to look forward for asset allocation? Let us move on. So that's where we begin from the beginning, from the nature, from roots. We have understood why asset allocation is important. This is one single reason why asset allocation is extremely important. I'm going to spend time on two most important reasons why, as an investor, asset allocation is important. This is a report that is published by the newspaper Mint every year. It tracks the different asset classes and how it has performed every year. और ये डेटा अगर आप देखोगे तो ये पिछले 10 साल का डेटा आपके सामने मैंने रखा है. So it tracks large cap, mid cap, small cap. It tracks real estate. It tracks gold prices. It tracks FD equivalent जो हम G-Sec, Treasury bill वगैरह जो बोलते हैं. It tracks international markets. And each of these asset classes, तो मैंने already आपको 6-7 asset classes के बारे में बता दिया. There is international, which is one asset class. There is gold, another asset class. Equity as a broad asset class, उसके subsets होते हैं, which is large cap, mid cap, small cap, etc. Bond market एक asset class होते हैं. G-Sec अलग asset class, वो debt के main class में subsets बना के आ जाते हैं. So all of this they track, and एक साल में each asset class में क्या return आपको आया है, that is what is published here. Now for international, for example, if you see, there is a color which is purple in color. If you see the real estate, where my cursor is pointing, it is the orangish color or rust color, you can say. Something like gold is almost like a golden color. Now, if you see across this quilt or this chart, that gold continuously for 3 years, from 2013 to 2015, it was the least performing asset class. कुछ पैसा नहीं बनाया. 2013 में 18% negative था. 2014 में it was 2.2%. 2015 में 2015 में it was minus 7.9. And the best asset class made 10% return, 11% return. In 2013, the international markets made 45% return, 1 year return. And gold in Indian rupees gave up 18 rupees, 18%. So every year, if you see in 10 years, this is keeping on fluctuating. So you need diversification across asset classes, because remember my first point, nobody out there knows. मुझे मालूम नहीं कि अगले साल, that is this year, 2023 में या 2024 में, which asset class will do well. I may have a lot of data points. We may have a lot of macro points, like Kirtan mentioned. However, it is not necessary that my ability to predict gold will do well, international markets will do well, large cap will do well, small cap will do well, is going to come out. If it comes out, it may be luck more than a plan or a design that I have opted for. Hence, important to have money in different asset classes. This is also something that we as individuals know when we consume food. हम सब लोग एक balanced diet के बारे में बात करते हैं. What is the concept of a balanced diet? It is, you need carbohydrates, you need sugar, you need protein, you need different vegetables and rice, roti, etc. to make it combined meal of healthy meal for you, where you get the sufficient amount of minerals, vitamins, proteins, etc. So we always say गाजर से आपको vitamin A मिलते हैं, sprout से आपको proteins मिलते हैं, potato या rice आपको carbohydrates, which is energy देते हैं. So all of them come together in our meal. Similarly, different asset classes have different characteristics. You need the characteristics, the vitamins and minerals from all these asset classes to come together to create a healthy portfolio. But the reason that you need asset allocation is because of this quilt here, जहां पे हर asset class का एक टाइम अच्छा भी आता है, एक बुरा वक्त भी आता है. तो दोनों टाइम वो अगर मेरे पोर्टफोलियो में नहीं है तो लॉन्ग टर्म में उसका पूरा बेनिफिट मुझे नहीं मिलेगा. That is why we say that asset allocation is extremely important.
Usha, going on to the point that you were saying while you started the session, why nobody can predict what is going to happen in the future, and without the markets falling, you can't generally see returns. Now, if you look at the quint, and it is so clearly apparent. Of course, it is hindsight, but you look at 13, 14, 15, where gold didn't do anything, right? But
yes.
going forward over the next 7-8 years, gold were topping the charts, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But how many of us really, after having seen 13, 14, 15's gold performance, would have really thought of investing? And
100%.
Yeah, you continue doing the same thing. In 2016, small cap was the worst performer. 2017, it was the best performer.
Absolutely.
2017, GSEC was the worst performer. 2018, GSEC was amongst the best performers.
Yes.
Again, the same thing. You look at 2018, 19, small caps were the lowest performer. 2021, it did very well.
Absolutely.
You look at the hindsight and you understand that as our behavior, what is falling, we don't want to invest in, but that is exactly what works in the future. Right? So very well pointed out in the first slide itself, Usha. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So very correct and absolutely to the point observations, in terms of small cap or in terms of GSEC, every asset class, like Kirtan pointed out, it has gone through a cycle. And very interesting when you put a chart like this to see that what did not perform is the one which has skyrocketed in the next couple of years or quarters. Now, the very human behavior of wanting to avoid a loser is where asset allocation therefore steps in, because by force मेरा asset allocation हो ही जाता है. जितना भी मुझे अच्छा नहीं लगता है स्मॉल कैप, अगर मेरा पोर्टफोलियो में कुछ परसेंटेज ऑफ एलोकेशन स्मॉल कैप को दिया और मैंने वो वैसा ही छोड़ा, ये 2 साल वो मुझे थोड़ा दर्द दिया, but next 2 years it came up and compensated for the pain that it gave me in the 2 years preceding to that. So this is exactly why, like Kirtan said, we will always avoid a loser. We need to do asset allocation. That is precisely why. It is like sometimes in certain vehicles you say you can set a speed limit कि उसके ऊपर आप जा ही नहीं सकते हो, कितने भी अच्छे रास्ते आपको मिल रहा है, आप कितना भी smooth road है, you will not drive faster than that. So you're setting a speed limit. Asset allocation. So we can quote any number of examples from practical life where you can understand the importance why you need asset allocation. But to re-emphasize the point which Kirtan also brought out, the first and most important point is human behavior does not allow to buy losers, and therefore asset allocation works brilliantly. Now comes the second point, which is a takeaway from what Kirtan just pointed out. I said asset allocation gives you diversification, but why do you need diversification? And this slide will tell you why you need diversification. So this is actually the data for about 20 odd years, 2002 March 31st say till last Friday we have taken the data. So that is 31st March 2002 to 16th of June 2023 I have taken the data. All these are benchmark indices. Nifty 50 TRI, it has gone up 15.7% in this 21 odd years. CRISIL Corporate Bond Fund Index has given you 8.2%. So मोटा मोटी अपना FD का equivalent होता है. PPF जो traditional investment है, एक गवर्नमेंट बैक्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट है और सब लोग करते हैं. नाउ इधर एक पॉइंट मुझे और बोलना है. ज्यादा लोग सोचते हैं पीपीएफ में मुझे 2000 में इन द लेट 90s मुझे 12% मिलते थे. करेक्ट, आपको मिलता था 12%, बट वो धीरे धीरे कम होते जाते हैं. तो अगर मैंने पीपीएफ में इन्वेस्ट किया है पिछले 20 साल या 15 साल, माय रिटर्न इज नॉट 12 or 11%, it has come down and my money is locked in. So the return that PPF has given you is about 2.4%. And gold has gone up by about 12% in Indian rupees in the same 2021 odd years. Now, if the interesting part is, अगर मैं इसका एक equal weighted portfolio create किया, निफ्टी में 25% दिया, कॉर्पोरेट बॉन्ड इंडेक्स में 25%, पीपीएफ और गोल्ड में भी 25% रखा. Of course, asset allocation is not about equal weighting. You can have different combinations, but for a concept perspective, I'm saying if you do all of this, the combined portfolio would have earned you a return close to 11.8 to 11.9%. Interesting, if I do an average of all the three, 15 plus 8.2 plus 8.4 and 11.9 का average निकालेगा, so that comes to about 11.05%. That's so counterintuitive. हम सोच नहीं सकते, मैंने equal weighted कर दिया because the way the markets fluctuate, the losses and the recovery that happens, there is a big difference that happens when you do a asset allocation, and maybe in 3 years or 4 years, you revisit the asset allocation and you do some sort of a rebalancing. So equal weighted portfolio with some sort of a once in 3 year kind of a rebalancing would have taken you closer to a 12% return, which is the best among the 3 asset classes and probably a little less than the equity return. Most important part of this is how smooth that journey will be. Equity is volatile. Corporate bond index or PPF will be a smooth line. Gold will, of course, have its share of fluctuations. We saw that already. But the combined portfolio also reduces the risk of drawdowns. जो हम portfolio का value कितना गिरते हैं, because that is where client behavior becomes extremely important. जब आपका portfolio का value गिरते हुए देखते हैं लोगों को, that tolerance is very, very difficult for clients, and a diversified asset allocated portfolio reduces the drawdown. So it gives you diversification, it reduces the risk in the portfolio, and because it reduces the risk in the portfolio, it will help you to stay invested, and that will give a lot of benefits to client portfolios. So Kirtan, I would just like to take a minute here and to show a screen which would be a chart which is of the how drawdowns are controlling them is very important. So this is basically
very interesting. I was supposed to just ask you that because of course you did mention that it is smoother at 11.8%. I was just about to ask you that is there some data point where we can understand how smooth is it? So thank you so much for
that. So I'm just showing you, all the asset classes that we took in the model, which is equity, that is Nifty 50, and gold price, CRISIL corporate bond index, and the PPF. The blue line, the dark blue line here. So let me just, suppress everything and only show the PPF line so that we all understand. Yeah, so this is the blue line. And like I always expected, PPF is a straight line, not much of volatility. The interest rates would have got reduced every year in between 2-3 times. But other than that, it is a very straight line. So it's a very comforting line for every investor. Now, let me just show you the Nifty line. We know how volatile the Nifty line is. We all experience that. And it is that volatility which gives you that 15.8% kind of return. Now I'm showing the gold line, which is, equally volatile. If you see, I'm going to keep only the gold line. That's equally volatile. It gave you 11.8% kind of a return on 12% return, but it is not straight line. It's volatile. And the other asset class that we spoke about is the sort of an FD equivalent or a company deposit. वो भी मोटा मोटी एक straight line जैसा ही है, बहुत कम volatility होते हैं. Now let us see the line, which is the portfolio mix. Now, if I put this with the 2 least volatile assets that we saw, you can see the portfolio mix is almost tracking the PPF line. This is the beauty of asset allocation. Aapko actually chart mein, you can't make out the difference between the portfolio line and the PPF line. So it is giving you a lot of stability, and it is this stability that helps a client stay the course of investment, which is what all of us want the client to do. And you as a client also would like to reach your destination by not getting nervous. बीच में वो जब मार्केट गिरता है वो मुझे इतना impact नहीं करना चाहिए. Like the quilt and Kirtan's point that he said, whenever there is a huge drawdown in equity market, shayad kuch other asset classes have performed better. So my drawdown is much less, and that is what this chart is showing. It is actually hugging the PPF line, and it gives you that kind of a stability. क्योंकि आपके portfolio में निफ्टी के अलावा दो चीजें हैं जो आपको stability देता है. And जब equity अच्छा नहीं करता है, usually gold performs well. These are all historic data points, but that all together, mixed, balanced diet जैसा आपको portfolio में वो benefit दे ही देता है. So this is something that is very interesting to understand the need of asset allocation.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, what we are trying to say is that, it ended up giving us 12% return with the volatility of probably a debt plus PPF kind of a mixture.
Absolutely.
So it actually gave you risk equivalent to fixed income, and it generated returns which is much better than a fixed income.
Absolutely. And which is what you aim to do by doing asset allocation. So diversification, and then it reduces the risk in the portfolio, which helps you to stay the course of the portfolio goals that you have set for yourself.
Usha, can anybody use the link that you were using? Is it open?
Yes, it is open.
Okay, thank you.
So in a nutshell, what we spoke, you need asset allocation. Why? Because it gives you diversification. Asset class returns are not linear. वो straight line में कभी नहीं जाता है. सब ऊपर नीचे हो जाता है. There is volatility. There is divergence in returns. And because of that, when I do diversification, it reduces the risk in my portfolio, which leads to better experience, better holding period, and you get better final outcome, which is to create wealth over the long term. So this is basically how the asset allocation methodology or the reasons to have asset allocation. Quickly, a summary on different asset classes and what does each do. मेरा जो बैलेंस डाइट का एग्जांपल है, गाजर क्यों खाते हैं, भिंडी क्यों खाते हैं और एग या स्प्राउट्स क्यों खाते हैं, अलग अलग चीजों के लिए हम खाते हैं. So I don't eat a diet which is only rich on proteins or carbohydrates. I try to bring all aspects that is needed for my body and health into the diet that I consume. Similarly, there are different purposes for different assets. मुझे हर asset growth चाहिए, मुझे wealth creation चाहिए, मुझे growth assets चाहिए. Growth assets are equities, private equity, venture capital, real estate. ये सब growth assets होते हैं क्योंकि इसका एक multiplier effect आ जाता है over the long term. And they are something that generates value. Equity is a business. Private equity is investing into businesses which are not listed. Real estate is, land, and land is scarce in that sense. And therefore, the property that you own will grow in value over a period of time. I need regular income. Income generating assets hote hain, which is government bonds, rental income. If I buy a property and the rental I get is income generating, REITs, jo real estate investment trust jo bolte hain, FDs, all of these are generally income generating assets. Inflation जो होते हैं, बहुत कुछ प्रॉब्लम है, कमोडिटी का प्राइस बहुत ऊपर गया है या अभी रिसेंटली कोविड के बाद जो हुआ है, so those assets which are meant to beat inflation, gold, commodities, usually they are hard assets. वो touch and feel हो जाता है. वो assets inflation को beat करते हैं, वो मेरे portfolio में एक purpose आ जाता है. And then there are assets which you may or may not want to do. In a different terminology, I will say volatility management is not the correct word for most of our kind of investors. You and me as investors are people who want for an emergency requirement. पता नहीं है, कुछ मेरे company में problem हो गया. Some people got laid off. Like for example, during COVID, a lot of airline and hotel staff got laid off. This was something that was not expected at all. But वो business इतना shrunk हुआ, businesses को भी अपना profit pool या bottom line देखने के लिए, they would have done a bit of cost cutting, a reduction of manpower. And if I was employed in an airline industry or in a hotel industry, I would have lost my job. it would have taken a few months for me to get my job back. In that period, I need some emergency funding. So you keep cash, आप arbitrage में रखोगे, money market funds में रखोगे, बैंक में savings account में रखोगे. These are basically to manage an emergency or volatile situation that happens. It can also be seen as you take a call on the market. Say markets are at very high levels and you feel that ये sustainable नहीं है, मुझे थोड़ा पैसा कैश में रखना चाहिए कि अगर मार्केट में कुछ चेंज आएगा, then I will want to go and invest. It's possible in real estate as well that the prices in the city that I live have gone up very high and I'm wanting to buy a property, but अभी मुझे नहीं करना है because मुझे लगता है कि prices नीचे आ सकता है या ये भाव पे मुझे नहीं खरीदना है. That money I'm keeping into a cash, or whenever the event happens, I will go and deploy it. So this is basically, if you imagine a food table, it's something very similar to that. Different asset classes, different purpose है, और हर purpose के लिए आपके पास एक option आ जाता है या couple of options आ जाते हैं. Now, if you remember the portfolio that we created, it had debt, which is income generating asset. It had equity, which is the growth asset, and it also had gold, which is the inflation hedge. So it was a combination of all the three asset classes of the four that I've put on the screen that we created about a minute back and discussed about it. Now comes the next point. So हमने सीखा क्यों asset allocation चाहिए और different asset classes क्या-क्या होता है. Now comes the most important question. पता है कि ये करना चाहिए, but कैसे करेंगे? How do you decide on asset allocation? So I will speak about two aspects. There is a very traditional old method of asset allocation which is taught in schools and colleges. Textbook में आ जाते हैं और हम सब ने वो सीख के गया, उसमें कोई गलती नहीं है. But there is also a slightly better way of looking at asset allocation, which I can say is little more customized. And seeing the investor behavior in the Indian market for over 25-30 years, people are proposing these ideas. So whatever suits an investor or the listener, he or she can adopt to that. What is the traditional method of asset allocation? We typically classify customers basis their risk-taking ability. कि आप conservative investor हो, आप एक moderate risk taker हो, आप एक aggressive risk taker हो. Right? And how do we do that? There are different ways of doing it. There are questionnaires, there are discussions, there are which stage of life you are in today. आपका income capability कैसे है? आपका loans कितना है? So multiple reasons and ways of finding out how can you assess your risk taking ability. Once I establish the risk taking ability of a person, then we say that equity में आप 10% रखो और debt में आप 90% रखो. अभी इसका कोई golden rule नहीं है. Can it be 20-80? Of course it can be 20-80. Can it be 40-60? Yes, it can be. I'm talking broadly about a principle that people may follow. Can I make further cuts into this? Of course, you can say conservative 1 and conservative 2, moderate 1 and moderate 2, or moderately risky, moderately aggressive. वो सब combination हम कर सकते हैं और काफी reports में और studies में आपको वो मिलेगा है. I've just to make it simple and easy to understand. What are these numbers that you are showing here? If you have invested 1 crore of rupees and assuming that debt gives you between 5 to 7% and equity gives you on an average 12%, looking at the historic numbers, 1 crore of investment over 10 years will grow to be 1.6 to 2 crore. A moderate risk because I've increased the equity and that means a higher allocation to an asset जहां पे return थोड़ा ज्यादा मिलता है. It will be 2 to 2.4 crore and 70 to 30 will be 3 to 3.6 crore. अभी इसका problem क्या है? जब मैं ये बात करूंगी and I share this with a client and a client is seeing this, everybody wants to make more money. Always a client will think that I'm an aggressive client or I'm a moderate client because it is like asking a question. अगर आप weight loss program करना चाहते हो, आपको कितना किलो weight lose करना चाहिए? Nobody will say मुझे 2 किलो करना चाहिए if I put an option of 2, 5 or 10. सबसे ज्यादा weight loss ही मुझे पसंद होगा because that is what will make me happy. That what will make me look trimmer and fitter. इसलिए I will go. But to lose 10 kg versus a 2 kg, the effort I have to take is very different. वो पता होगा जब आप when you hit the gym or when you start running, or when the trainer makes you do more time of on exercise than what you would otherwise do. Maybe 2 kilo is possible only by diet control, but 10 kilo is not possible by diet control. It's a combination of exercise, diet, and probably giving up eating something that you love a lot. So the difficulty levels comes when you start the journey. The issue in this method is also that I say I am aggressive, but जब market 20% गिरता है और मेरा portfolio value उस हिसाब से गिरते हैं, that is where I feel that, oh, this is not what I thought initially. So difficult to decide your investing style. मतलब आपका preference क्या है? आप actually conservative हो या aggressive हो is what you cannot decide. Expectation will be very different from reality. मेरा वो example of the gym, that जब आप gym जाते हो और वो आपको 1 घंटा treadmill पे दौड़ाते हो, that is when you realize, बाप रे, this is something that I didn't bargain for. And sometimes your goals can change in between. Maybe you got a better job, your income stream change, so you can probably take a little more risk, or you can go up the ladder as far as the allocation is concerned. So these things are at times the issues that you face when you have this conventional model or traditional model की इतना करने से आप conservative होगा, इतना करने से आप moderate होगा, etc. kind of a thing. But in the absence of anything, this is definitely a good model to follow. But to make it a little better, what we can talk about is an approach which is called triple T approach. That is, you decide your time frame, you have to have tolerance to decline. ये पता करना बहुत जरूरी है. This is actually the most important thing. And then you decide what is the trade-off that you are making. So let me just, so same thing. If you are a 0 to 3 year investor, again, 0 to 100, 0 to 30, there is no Bible written on this. It is not cast in stone. You can always have a little bit of changes. It is a broad construct that we are talking about. But why 0 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, and more than 10 years, and lower equity when the time frame is lower, we will see a little more in the next couple of slides as well. So broadly, we are saying, अगर आपका 3 साल तक का ही टाइम फ्रेम है तो आप इक्विटी में मत आइए, बिकॉज 3 साल में इक्विटी में नेगेटिव रिटर्न बहुत हाई चांसेस है आपको दिखेगा. 3 to 5 years, you can build some equity. 5 to 10 years, your equity allocation depending on tolerance. So all of this depends on the other points as well. And if you are more than 10 years investor and you have a time frame in mind, you can go beyond 50 to 70%.
Usha, I think the biggest problem is, the biggest problem is, if you look at this slide, I was reading a report where SEBI came out and said that only 3% of investors actually stay beyond 5 years. And that's the data that they've been able to pull out when they looked at the behavior or the buying and the selling pattern in mutual funds. I think through this presentation also, what we are actually trying to tell investors is that if only 3% of the investors are going to stay invested in mutual funds, most of y'all are better off doing debt than equity.
100%. Yes,
because you're not going to get the right kind of result that you are really looking at. And which is why this is so important of a slide, that even if I'm the most aggressive investor, right, and which is why I might want to have very high allocation to equity, but if my time frame is not going to support my aggression or my risk appetite, I'm still going to have a negative result.
100%. And the next slide actually tells why that happens, Kirtan. If you see, this is basically, precisely the point that you were highlighting in terms of investors not holding for more than 3 years. When you look at a 6-month rolling return of Nifty, and for a minute I will take on rolling return, कोई भी दिन आप invest किया होगा, अगले 6 महीने में आपको क्या return मिला होगा. So this shows the range, and it is from the beginning of Nifty. So जब से Nifty है, Nifty index अपने पास values है, recent data तक 6 महीने का return हमने plot किया है. Now, as an investor or as an advisor, everybody should understand and appreciate the depth of a rolling return data point. हर साल बाजार कम से कम 220 दिन NAV declare करते हैं because 220 days plus minus markets are functioning in India. तो जिस दिन equity market open है इंडिया में अपने को कोई भी म्यूचुअल फंड स्कीम का या इंडेक्स का वैल्यू मिलेगा. If I'm talking about 10 years, I'm talking about 2,200 plus data points. And if I'm talking about 20 years, which this is more than that, it is from 1992 to 2022. So that's almost 30 years of data. 30 into 220 days. अगर मैंने इन्वेस्ट कर सकते थे तो अगले 6 महीने में मेरा क्या रिटर्न बना है. The range of return so far the markets have shown in absolute terms because it's 6-month data. The worst it has given you in 6 months is minus 28 to 30%. And the maximum it has gone up is also about 70 to 72%. तो इसका ये मतलब है मैंने आज ₹1 इन्वेस्ट किया या ₹100 इन्वेस्ट किया और 6 महीने में मैंने जब मेरा पोर्टफोलियो का वैल्यू देखा, that portfolio which I invested in Nifty, the value is now 72 rupees because I have lost 28 rupees. It is possible that my 100 rupees has become 172. तो मेरा रेंज जो पिछले 30 साल में निफ्टी मुझे बताते हैं 78 to 172 का कोई भी नंबर बीच में आपको मिल सकता है. Now the minute a client sees this, आपने सही एसेट एलोकेशन किया, सब कुछ करने के बाद जब मेरा पोर्टफोलियो का वैल्यू इस रेंज पे दिखते हैं ओनली इन इक्विटी, द क्लाइंट बिकम्स एक्सट्रीमली नर्वस कि वो रह नहीं सकता है या वो टॉलरेट नहीं कर पाते हैं. So here again, if I had done asset allocation, the experience would be very different.
Sorry, if I can just quickly summarize what you are saying and correct me if I have understood this well. We are saying कि अगर मैंने ₹100 डाला होता कभी भी since the time Nifty has been existent,
yes,
right? और मैं 6 महीने तक होल्ड करता,
करेक्ट,
लेकर 6 महीने तक, और 6 मंथ के एंड में अगर मैं अपना पोर्टफोलियो देखता तो पिछले 40 साल का डेटा ये बता रहा है दैट माय एक्सपीरियंस कुड हैव बीन 172 हो सकता था क्योंकि 6 महीने में सबसे ज्यादा रिटर्न 72% निकला है. And it could have lost value by 28%, which is 100 could have become 72.
That is correct.
What we are trying to say is that आपको लगता है आप बहुत अग्रेसिव इन्वेस्टर हो, बट अगर आप पिछले इतने सालों की निफ्टी की हिस्ट्री देख लीजिए, if you invest for 6 months, your 100 rupees can either become 72 or can become 172. It can be anywhere between this, right?
Yes.
While you're going to be very happy if 100 becomes 172, but how many people are actually happy when 100 becomes, let's say 72? And that is where investors really have to decide whether 100 becoming 72 in 6 months, whether they are comfortable or not. Do I get
that? Is correct. Yes, you're perfectly right, Kirtan, and you have very well summarized it. That is where the question of starting off with an aggressive asset allocation, and when you see this, the behavior changes, which is where the tolerance to this becomes extremely important. कि ये हो सकता है, होगा या नहीं मुझे पता नहीं है, बट हिस्ट्री आपको ये बताता है कि ऐसे रेंज में मार्केट मूव किया है. आगे जाके वो कैसा बिहेव करेगा 40 साल रिपीट हो सकता है, कुछ और नंबर भी आ सकता है, बट एटलीस्ट आई नो एज एन इन्वेस्टर कि ये मैं देख सकता हूं और मेरा अगर इसका टॉलरेंस है, मैं बर्दाश्त करूं तो ही मुझे ये एसेट एलोकेशन या ये डिसीजन लेना चाहिए. that is where the behavior changes. Ki what I said, the treadmill example of running on the treadmill for 1 hour because I didn't bargain for it. When you said lose 10 kg, it is so exciting. I'm visualizing myself wearing the smartest of clothes and, you know, looking very beautiful or very handsome. But to reach there, the difficulty level, or when I go past a McDonald's or a vada pav shop, not the ability to pick that up and pop it into my mouth is the control mechanism that is not built in me because I was not mentally prepared for that.
Isha, so true. I've been hitting the gym regularly with an intention to have 6-pack abs, but I can so relate to your example.
But that's something that we all go through, right? So I'm sure, I mean, I always believe that investing is nothing different from our daily life and what we understand from childhood. But it's just that, when it comes to investing, we think it is a very different science, but ultimately it's human behavior which comes there as well.
No, this is such a brilliant slide by you, Usha. I'll tell you, everybody wants 100 to become 172, but the day you tell them their 100 can become 72 because it can lose 28% in just 6 months, that is where you will actually understand the behavior of you as an investor, whether you are willing to see that 100 becoming 72 or not.
That is correct. Absolutely. And just one more, point, Kirtan, on the same note. And this is again something that is spoken a lot by many advisors and investing influencers like you and many others. Every year, even in the best of years, market does show a correction from the highest value the Nifty has touched or the index has touched to the lowest value that it has gone through. So you may say that in a year, say like 2004 to 2008, where markets were doing extremely well from a broad market perspective. But wo salon mein bhi market 39%, 41%, 24% beach mein gira hai. So it is, no year has gone. Again, a data from 19, you can see this data, it is from 1980 to 2021 is what I have put it up here. But even if you extrapolate it to 22, one more year, the data will not look very different. 40 years tells you on an average, market falls around 21%. And there are just 4 years where the fall has been less than 10%. Intra-year, what you call, like when you buy stocks, you say about intraday movement of the stock. Something similar, intra-year movement of the market. Some years, of course, like 2008, market fell 60%. To 1992, long back, most of us may not have the memory, but that was a bad patch of the Indian economy. Market fell 47%. 2001, the year where September 11, the World Trade Center attack happened, market fell 41%. The COVID year 2020, market fell 38%. So these are years that we definitely remember and it is etched in our mind. But uske alawa bhi, ek अच्छे साल में भी market does fall. Why? A good year also you see that market has fallen maybe 15%, 12%, 14%, etc. So the data shows every year as an investor, I should see fluctuation in my portfolio, which can be 10%, 12%, 13%. And once in 6-7 years, you will see a massive fall in the market. अभी reason बाद में पता होता है. 2008 में हमने देखा, फिर you have seen in 2011 about 26%, but the mega fall then came in the form of COVID in 2020. उसके पहले 2001 में the September 11 happened and that showed a 41%. So I would say 1992 was 1 year. And of course, in India, that decade was pretty difficult. So you had more years where market fell 30, 35%, etc. But if you put this graph in front of us, you can actually understand there is one big fall that happens maybe every 5 to 7 years for whatever reasons. And that's true even globally if you track the markets. But more important, every year market gives you some sort of a fluctuation. So yes, smooth journey market ka hai hi nahi. Market is not a smooth journey mechanism. It is got ups and downs.
Such a brilliant slide and such right data points that you highlighted. I still remember 2004 to 2008, the market went up 100%, if I'm not wrong, almost.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But
yes.
How many people would have actually made that 100% if in 2004 itself the market fell 27%?
Correct.
Or
correct.
2006 the market fell almost 30% or 29%. Such brilliant data points, but so rightly pointed out to explain this concept.
Yeah. So in combination with the two slides that we are talking, the volatility is there in one manner. And if you look at it calendar year wise or financial year wise also, so both of this tells us asset allocation is important, but equally important is to understand that I need to tolerate this kind of a fluctuation. And as advisors, as investment professionals, it's our duty to guide investors that unless we can't take this kind of a fluctuation, it's difficult to stay invested. Baki sab baad mein aa jate hain. So it's extremely important to realize that market is not a continuous return generating machine. It is a long-term return generating machine peppered with lot of fluctuations that you are seeing here. I mean, it's so interesting, no, Kirtan, to see only 4 years in 40, it has fallen intra-year less than 10%.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going back to your original slide where you said in 20 years, we've done, let's say 15.8%, 9% as CAGR. And now I am seeing that if I look at the same last 20 years that you're talking about, there are only 3 years where it has fallen less than 10%.
Absolutely.
Not even talking about positive returns. I'm saying
correct.
Only 3 years in 20 years where it has fallen less than 10%. Such interesting.
Yeah. So, just to move to the next point again. So as I said, if I'm calling this a time frame, a tolerance and a trade-off based approach, and a time frame we understand, we can decide asset allocation. हम decide करोगे. But वो सब पहला step होता है. That is like, again, I'm going to the gym example, and since Kirtan liked it, I'm just referring to it again. It's the time I fill the form, I pay my fee, I meet my trainer. ये सब बातचीत होता है. That is where the time frame, asset allocation, everything gets decided. But उसके बाद जब मैं journey शुरू करूं, when I start hitting the gym, when I start, going to the class or the aerobics class, whatever it is, that's where my tolerance level, endurance, वो लोग endurance बोलते हैं, हम tolerance बोलते हैं. But whatever it is that ability to withstand pain. उधर पेन होगा, दर्द होगा, मसल क्रंच होगा, स्पैसम होगा, जो भी है. Either it is that seeing the market fluctuation, which itself is the pain. So दोनों जगह पे the effect is the same. One affects you mentally, the other one affects you physically. That's probably the only difference. Now, if we spoke about 3-4 classifications, 0 to 100%, no equity, then 10 to 20, 30%, 70-30, all those portfolios. And when you have this return expectation, we said lower return we saw was minus 28, and the highest was 72%. But if I do now the asset allocation, so I said there are 4 asset allocation categories that you can consider. Again, not a cast in stone model, but for the sake of understanding, let's go with 10, 30, 50, and 70%. A 6-month rolling return data tells me.
If you could use the cursor so that we know what number are you talking about. Yeah.
So I'm saying if I use a 10% equity allocation, a 6-month return can be minus 2% to upper range of 4%. 70%
this is based on the historical data that we are
talking about, assuming a 12 to 14% in equity and a 5 to 7% in debt. And we have done a combination of the asset.
Correct.
Which is largely equity and debt included. You add a little bit of gold, it could be slightly different, plus or minus. Sure. Yeah. So a 70% of equity in the 6-month period can see a minus 15%, 100% we said. When we spoke about the previous one, we said 100% can go down as much as minus 28 and go up as much as 72%. But when I'm putting 70% in equity, the balancing force comes from debt. So my lower range is not minus 28, it can be closer to minus 50. Okay. My upper range is of course not 72, it can be up to 30%. But there is also some periods, like if I had done an investment, say in November of 2019, and COVID happened in March 2020, between March and April, markets fell by 38 to 40%. Mera 6 mahina tabhi aata hai. So you can assume that I did a 50-50 portfolio. मैंने 50% equity में डाला नवंबर में, 50% debt में डाला, portfolio create किया. मेरा portfolio, when I review the portfolio on 31st of March 2020, it could have seen an erosion of probably close to 25%. This is assuming you did it in Nifty. If you had chosen an active fund, the numbers could be slightly different. Now that can be extremely disheartening to an investor. This is something that one has to be prepared for. So I am reiterating again and again the point of asset allocation's importance, but building in the tolerance for drawdowns that should also be educated to an investor. In spite of
sorry. Correct me if I understood this well. So I'm saying that, let's say if I take risk 2,
yes,
my allocation is 30% to equities.
Yes.
Right? What I should typically expect is minus 5% and plus 10% in 6 months.
Correct.
if my timing is pathetic for some odd reason, right? I
Yes.
can also
Yes.
go down to -15.
That is correct.
But,
Absolutely.
But if I think I am more aggressive and I go for risk 4, where there is 70% to equity, what my expectation should be is -15% to +30% can be the range, right? But in worst
Yes.
cases, it might go down to 35% also.
That is what. Yes, absolutely.
So more the
Yeah.
equity, more is going to be the positive and the negative range, right?
Sure. Correct. Correct. Absolutely. Now, Kirtan, an interesting point here, which I must mention is often when people watch this show, they may wonder why are we talking so much about 6-month normal return expectation? Because अपना तो plan करते हैं 10 साल के लिए, 15 साल के लिए. One is the precise point that you made. SEBI's data shows that investors don't hold on for more than 2.5 to 3 years. More important, every advisor does a portfolio review with a client once in 3 months or once in 6 months. So it is not because 6 months is a time frame that you are bargaining for, but जैसा वेट का लॉस हुआ है क्या या क्या प्रोग्रेस हुआ है, हम हर हफ्ता वेट चेक करेंगे या कुछ लोग हर दिन वेट मेजर करते हैं, ऐसा पोर्टफोलियो में हर 3 महीने में या 6 महीने में एक रिव्यू हो जाता है. स्टेटमेंट आ जाते हैं और क्लाइंट अपने आप रिव्यू करते हैं या एडवाइजर के साथ बैठ के दे विल डू अ रिव्यू. So in such situations, these data points becomes extremely relevant and it becomes a pain point if the portfolio is looking in the red. That is where this 6-month normal expectation becomes important from a setting the expectation right conversation. It is not because equity is sold for 6 months or investors are coming in with a 6-month idea. The reason is largely the kind of review mechanism that a large majority of distributors as well as clients have got used to or expected to be done. And in that, you will have to come out with data points where the portfolio value could look the way it is coming in the table below, where 1 crore ka portfolio ka 2% loss is 98 lakhs. Worst scenario में अगर मैंने risk 1 लिया, which is a 10% equity allocation, मेरा portfolio value 95 lakhs दिख सकता है. Now risk 4 जो मैंने बोला, I am a 35-year-old person, my income is good, but 2 of us, me and my spouse is earning, सब कुछ plan करके गया, डाल दिया, but हो सकता है my portfolio value of 1 crore is looking to be 65 lakhs, which is a extremely disheartening experience in 6 months for a client to observe, go through. But this can happen is what history tells you. And hence it is important to educate the client, speak about the return profile of different asset classes and re-emphasize the need to do asset allocation as well as go through the journey in a manner that it is expected to happen.
Superb. Loved the 6-month explanation. I was supposed to ask you, I thought I'll ask you at the end of the discussion, but so well read and communicated, because I just started thinking myself when you explained why 6 months or how logical that was. People actually look at semi-annually or quarterly and say, अब मैंने invest किया था, क्या हुआ देखो तो सही. I think setting that expectation is so important versus a 3-year, 5-year, is because 3-year, 5-year, you will typically end up doing that 11, 12, right?
Correct.
But
Correct.
in that 6 months, if you're not able to convince this investor, he's not going to stay for the 3-year, 5-year.
Absolutely.
Very
Absolutely.
interesting. Very interesting. Thank you so much.
Sure. So just to summarize, we spoke a lot about the tolerance part, which has been probably the center stage of our discussion so far, apart from the importance of asset allocation in terms of diversification and reducing the risk. How will you understand your tolerance? Seeing it in paper or in a PPT like this is different from actually experiencing it. Okay. If you are an existing investor, ask the question. What question to ask? What did I do in February and March of 2020? मैंने बेचा क्या? Did I panic? Did I call my distributor and say क्या हो रहा है क्या? Yeah, did you invest more? January, March 2008 में क्या किया? मैंने वापस यही काम किया था. Did I learn better from there and become a better investor in 2020? What did you do? So for an existing investor, if when you're doing an asset allocation, redoing it, you can always ask these questions, discuss with him as a distributor, understand from his past behavior, etc. If you are a new investor, then we have to educate them. And if it's an investor who's watching this, please brace yourself. Please prepare yourself for large short-term swings worse than what you would have planned for. आप expectation बहुत नीचे रखोगे तो आपका जो आ जाएगा it can be better and your ability to tolerate. मतलब मैं मर जाऊंगा ऐसा सोच के if I go to a gym or I will be sort of torn, my arms and legs will be pulled out. That never happens. So you will always feel better than that when you are exercising or when you are running or whatever it is. So you always say, right, let's expect for the worst. So जो भी आपने data में देखा उससे भी worst अगर मैं expect करके जाऊं तो then if the markets don't surprise you with that extent of negativity, you will be little more better off. Because other than that, other than going through the market, seeing actually your portfolio declining and then it moves up in the long term, there is no other way to say that you will be able to go through this path, navigate this path of volatility and reach your destination. It is like saying, side में बैठ के हम swimming नहीं सीख सकते, हमको पानी में जाना ही पड़ेगा, मुंह में पानी जाएगा ही जाएगा. So these are all real life examples or experiences that we go through. We tell our children, if you have gone for swimming ever, the instructor will tell you that and all of that. Same way if you are a first time investor, but कोई swimming करने को सीख लिया और वो पानी में जा रहे हैं, उनको कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता है, right? He understands that थोड़ा पानी मुंह में जाएगा. Even an experienced swimmer gets some water will go into his nose and mouth, etc. It's not like it will never happen, but he understands that he will sneeze or he will just blow his nose and get the water out, etc. Say, but when you're a new first timer, it will sort of make you feel a little nervous, etc. तो वो nervousness होगा और वो सही है, होना जरूरी भी है. But prepare for the worst and then we will be able to move ahead much better. So the tolerance part, there is no other way to tolerate other than experience. The more you go through the cycles, the more experienced you become and the more tolerance you will naturally develop. Just to end with two more points, why do we say you have to tolerate? This is the gospel of investing. Longer the time frame, higher the odds of better return. And we are talking about everything on Nifty. We have not spoken about any other scheme or fund. We have used the most common index that is available to every investor and a long diversified benchmark index, which is Nifty TRI, and that is what we have used. So if you invest for 7 years, your chances of making more than 7% return is 98%. 10-year plus, nearly 100%, 99% times your returns is more than 7%. And you want to improve your return profile, then again, 82% times your chances of making more than 10% return on Nifty on an investment journey of 10 years. But the point is that slide of minus 28% to 70%. वो 6 महीने में जब वो minus 28 आ जाता है या minus 25% आ जाता है, that is what puts a break in reaching this destination. हमारा journey इधर रुक जाते हैं. To avoid that, this is the reality of market, and you can never reach this number or this goal without going through this pain. This will happen. Only 39% of time market has given you good returns if you define good as more than 10% in this many number of years, which is almost 30 years of data we are talking. But 82% of times you have made more than 10% return on the Nifty if you have invested for more than 10 years. So this is something that is extremely important. And why do we do all this? So there is a simple rule which is called 843. It takes 8 years. If you are investing a small investment of 30,000 every month and assuming a 12% annum return, the purpose is not whether it is 30,000 or it is 12%. It is more about the power of compounding. So we always say the compounding is the, eighth wonder. A lot of statements on compounding goes, don't break the compounding, etc. But वो compounding पहुंचने के लिए पहले तो वो थोड़ा tough phase cross करना चाहिए, तभी तो compounding आ जाता है. So the first rule is it takes, if I'm doing a 30,000 investment, it takes 8 years to reach the first 50 lakhs, 4 years to reach the next 50 lakhs, and it only takes 3 years to reach the next 50 lakhs. And by the time you're in the 20th year, you will add almost 50 lakhs every year. So if you see the journey, and there is a very interesting, image available on, different investors, global investors, how they have grown their wealth over a period of time. But the power of compounding kicks in very, very meaningfully in the later stages of your life. So 50 lakhs you are making after 8 years. And then the next 50 lakhs, which is my wealth has become 1 crore in the 4th year plus 1 month. And then in the 3rd year, I have made about, another 3 years, I've made about another 50 lakhs, or it has become 1.5 crore. And then it just zooms. So it is like a curve which keeps moving up very, very fast. Now here, there is of course an assumption, which is you will make 12%. Those numbers can change. This is of course considering the conservative estimate of what Nifty has generated over a period of time in the last 30 to 35 years. But nonetheless, from a concept perspective, initially it takes time to build assets because you're starting small. Your contribution to investing thoda kam hota hai, and then after a period, तो because nest egg बनाया नहीं है, but एक बार मैंने nest egg बना दिया, वो अपने आप काम करना शुरू कर देता है. So that is how compounding works for you. But for you to reach this destination, this is also purposely kept as the last slide. Usually हम लोग इसको पहले करते हैं compounding etc. But ये कोई जरूरी नहीं है पहले देखने का, because ये journey last में आ जाता है. तो वो जर्नी पहुंचने के लिए, वो जगह पहुंचने के लिए, डेस्टिनेशन पहुंचने के लिए मुझे करना क्या चाहिए? That is all what we and between me and Kirtan, we had the conversation in the beginning, and the last part of the journey is where it takes you to reach those multiple numbers, which is truly wealth creation. So basically, that's the conversation from my end, Kirtan.
Isha, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I have really learned from this presentation of yours. Like I said, the best part for me was the reason why you took 6 months, right?
Yes.
Of course,
yes.
I'm not talking from the retail investor standpoint, but my personal standpoint is because I was so intrigued with the 6-month data point where, I was definitely supposed to ask you why, and the logic that you gave me was so logical, right? Because we talk to investors, we know what runs in the retail investor's head, and I got so connected with when you said that the portfolio reviews every 6 months, even if you are a long-term investor, and if in those 6 months you are not able to convince the investor why this is normal, right, the deviation, then that journey of 7 years, 10 years will not come into picture at all.
Absolutely.
Such a hard hitting point, right? And also the 2004 to 2008 example that you gave, right, where the markets actually went up 100%, but how many actually withstanded the 2006 30% fall or a 2004 25% fall is such an important thing that investors should definitely know of, right? And I'll also tell you, my biggest takeaway from this, from a retail investor standpoint, Usha, was that traditionally you see all of us saying that, if you're a conservative investor, do 10% debt and 90% equity. And I'm just quoting the numbers that you said, right? And if you're an aggressive investor, do a 30% debt and a 70% equity. I know 99.9% websites and people around us talk that language. But I really loved how you, moved asset allocation to goal orientation, right? When you said that, और 3 साल के नीचे तो equity में आओ ही मत.
Yes.
अगर आप, the longer the time frame that you have increased your investment horizon is because irrespective, even if you're a conservative investor, right? but you're going to stay invested for 10 years. Why do you want to be happy with a subpar investment of fixed income when you can make more, provided you
Absolutely.
control your behavioral biases?
That's right.
That's the biggest takeaway for me from a retail investor standpoint. Usha, you are brilliant as always. I've heard you multiple times, and I'm always in a wow of, how do you come up with so much of data and put that across so simply? Thank you so much for taking the time out and being a part of Finance Pe Charcha. And I'm just hoping that everybody who listens in would definitely learn a lot, like I have learned myself. And I'm just hoping that I get an opportunity to talk to you again on some other topic, some other time. And I'm sure everybody who listens in would have the same kind of feedback that I have for you. It was brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thank you, Kirtan. It was extremely delightful to have a conversation, and the way you conducted it by, in between summarizing certain points. And I sincerely wish our combined effort helps distributors and investors stay the course and really benefit from this beautiful asset class with long-term goal orientation. Thank you so much for inviting us.
It definitely will, for sure. And everybody who's listening to us, if you like the content, we are going to come up with a lot of such interesting content with market leaders, experts. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon so that you receive a notification every time we put up a new video. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.